So when you see a bunch of new chord voicings go by, some of these Freddie Green style chord voicings, you might be wondering, well, that's great, but how do I know where to use them? Like if I know a song in open position using open position or cowboy chords, how do I know how to translate that up the neck and start playing chord progressions outside of open position in the first place? So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So this week I've been answering questions about my upcoming workshop this Saturday on minor blues chord substitutions. And one of the questions I got was literally, how do I know where to use these chords? And how do I learn how to use chords up the neck instead of just playing in open position? So here's one way to start thinking about this. And the idea is basically, if you're playing on any kind of traditional blues or folk material, it's always basically built out of 1, 4, and 5 chords. And there might be a couple other things going on, and it might be a little different if it's major or minor. But basically, when you're playing in open position, you know how to find 1 and 5 and 4 in all the basic open keys, like C and G and A and D and E minor and A minor. So there's the equivalent of the default chords when you go up the neck and you're using these Freddie Green style chord voicings. So if you're playing a song like St. James Infirmary, which is an 8-bar blues in a minor key, and I'll play it in A minor, the 3 chords you're gonna be using are basically A minor and E7 and D minor, because the chord progression goes basically 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 4, 5, and then more of all that. At its most fundamental. So I only use 3 chord shapes there, right? Just a basic open A minor chord, an E7 chord, and a D minor chord. Now when you go up the neck, to start off with, it's really just a set of default chord voicings 2. So the default 1 chord in a minor key is this minor 6 chord shape with the root 6th and flat 3rd on the 6th, 4th, and 3rd string. And then the default 5 chord, in this case for an E7, is the same shape, just slid up 2 frets. And now this is the 5th, and this is the 3rd, and this is the flat 7. So if you're gonna rock between A and E like this, now you can do it like this. And then to get a D minor chord, let's take that same minor 6 shape and slide it up 5 frets. And here's your D minor 6 chord. It's just like moving around bar chords. You look for where the root is, and that's where you move the chord to. So that's basically the first part of the process. The second part is finding out all the different ways to connect up the chords to each other. And that, granted, is a little more complicated, and I've talked about it a bit in a couple other recent videos. But the first part of it is to find other versions of the same chord. So you can play the A minor 6 like this, or you could swap in this A minor chord with the 3rd and the bass. Here's the 3rd, the root, and the 5th of that chord. So instead of sitting on this chord, you could move between 2 different versions of this chord. And by the same token, when you're sitting on an E7, you could go to some kind of half-step motion away from it, and then come back. So that instead of just playing you've got places to go. But the idea is, first you want to just frame things by knowing how to find 1, 4, and 5. And this works in a major key too. Like if you're just trying to play in C, and you know that the chords in open position are C and F and G, then you start off with a default C chord, which in a major key would be again the root and again the sixth, but now a major third on top. So there's your default 1 chord. And then your default 5 chord, in the key of C, the 5 chord is G. So we want a G7. So now we're going to use this shape where it's the 5th and the 3rd and the flat 7. So now we've got 1 and 5. And now we might have like a 4 7th chord. So now we've got 1, 4, and 5 in C. And the really fantastic thing is, again, like bar chords, once you know it in this key, you're just like, oh, well, I want to play in G. Let's start down here with the default G chord, the root, the 6th, and the 3rd. And now my 5, D, is going to be right here, 5th, 3rd, and flat 7. And my 4 chord, C7, 5th, 3rd, and flat 7 is going to be down here. So I can play. And so you've got these default chords you can reach for, and you can even start with a root on the 5th string, like if you wanted to play in a key like F, which is notoriously not fun to do in open position. Here's a different kind of chord you can use with the 5th and the 3rd, and instead of the 7th, you can put the root on top. This one's kind of weird and a bit of a stretch, but it gives you a good just major chord when the root is here on the 5th string. So you could have your 1 chord, you could go to your 4 chord and play B flat 6, and then you could take that up here for a C chord, and if you just take the 6th and raise it a half step, you get a C7. So here's F, B flat, C. So you've got these different ways to play 1, 4, and 5 in a major key or a minor key with the root on the 6th string for the 1 chord or the root on the 5th string for the 1 chord. So that's the idea, which you can apply, again, to either a major key or a minor key. In my workshop coming up this weekend, we're going to focus on the minor blues. And so if you have just these 3 default chords of 1 and 4 and 5, 1 minor, 4 minor, and the 5 dominant 7, you can start to take this idea and apply it to the 12-bar blues in a minor key, or you can apply it to all kinds of minor 8-bar blues, things like Hesitation Blues, or House of the Rising Sun, or St. James Infirmary, or like I mentioned the other day, the Bridge to St. Louis Blues, or even a 16-bar blues like Summertime. So because all those tunes are still basically built out of 1, 4, and 5, all the different moves and voicings and chord substitutions that you learn in the context of a minor blues, like a 12-bar blues, you can then take and apply to a bunch of different other tunes as well. It's just a vocabulary and a set of moves. And if you understand how to take the basic 1, 4, and 5 and dress them up with these moves, that information is portable, and you've just learned a way to apply it to all kinds of other songs as well as the 12-bar blues. And that's exactly the approach that we're going to take in the upcoming workshop this weekend. So if you'd like to learn more about that, go to the link below or the link on screen to learn more and sign up. If you've got a question or a comment about today's lesson, please leave it down below. I would love to hear from you. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.